A Working Man came out on Friday, and I just saw the movie. If you don't know, it's based on a book series by Chuck Dixon called Levon Cade. Levin Cade. The reason I keep saying Levon is because of that Elton John song, and he shall be Levon. But it's Levin in the series, and I can't get it out of my head. And so this is the first book in the series, Levin's Trade, and this is exactly what the movie's based upon. Now, the director took some creative liberties from the book. The book is very serious. It's a gritty vigilante tale. And if you don't know Chuck Dixon's past, he's written Batman, The Punisher. He's a gritty vigilante type of writer. And Ayers and the Amazon crew actually took this and they tried to add like a lighthearted element to it, because if you watched The Beekeeper before, The Beekeeper had a lot of campy humor to it, and that's exactly what they added into this here. So that's what came out of this, right? And the tone difference made it for something that's not quite as good as the novel, but it is still a fun film regardless. Let's get into this in just a moment as we talk about a beautiful movie and give you a wonderful review on this level that you can trust, because I've seen it and I'm a writer myself. So I write novels, and I've written superhero comic books, science fiction, and fantasy. I'm very tempted to write a vigilante novel at this point, just because this was so much fun and I'm really in the mood right now. But this is my new classic fantasy. It's sword and sorcery, demon's eye. It appeals to the same, quote, toxic masculinity that you would get from this movie as well. So if you enjoy fantasy stuff, grab this in the description below. We just came out with this about a week ago. Got some good reviews already. Thank you guys for being here. And you can check out my work on Kindle or paperback. Thank you for reading, everybody. And really appreciate you for being here. All right, so this movie is a Jason Statham movie. If you've not seen a Jason Statham movie before, it's about Jason Statham beating the crap out of people. And this is exactly what you get out of this. If you were expecting that, this is exactly what you get, which is great, because that's what I wanted when I'm coming into this. So he's a construction worker at the beginning of this film, and there's a beautiful opening sequence where it's like kind of almost impressionistic, where they show him rescuing somebody in a war effort from years ago. And that turns out to be a big part of his backstory. He's a British guy who teamed up and did a U.S.-Britain co-op sort of mission in the Middle East, obviously. And of course, he brought back somebody and helped him survive. And he was, just one of the most badass dudes in the military. He's a special ops kind of dude. Well, he's retired from that life now. He's just trying to make a life for himself in construction. Kind of down on his luck for the most part. We learned that his wife is dead. He's got a daughter who only gets to see part-time because the grandparents think that he's a danger to them. And he's really trying to get his life back on track. And I will say there's going to be spoilers in this, because if you're not interested in spoilers, there's a good spot to stop. But I'll try to give you a little impression of this before I actually go into all of that. And so, like I said, it's a Jason Statham movie of what you would expect. Now, the director added some elements into it, like I said, where it's not similar to the book, where it is on that campy and a lot of humor side to it. A lot of the bad guys are caricatures that feel a little comic booky. And that's interesting because, again, Chuck Dixon is a comic book writer, but what they added to make it feel comic booky was not actually from his novel. His novel was very serious, like I said, and this took a different tone on that level. So overall, it was fun. The campy villain moments do end up causing problems for it. And there's a couple other small issues with it on the plot level, which, again, did not come from the book, but came from the way that they decided to reformat this for a movie that made it so it wasn't perfect, but it was a lot of fun overall, and I do recommend seeing the movie. It is definitely worth watching, and I hope they make more of these. I understand that it is working very, very well, and that will be my summary before I get into the spoilerific sort of stuff right here. Okay, so you can see that Jason Statham's dealing with this girl. This girl is like a 19, 20-year-old gal. Her name's Jenny Garcia, and she's being raised by whoever's running this construction company, the Garcia parents. And she's in college, and she's helping them out. She's very smart, book smart, not street smart, and that's kind of an interesting part of her character right there. The whole premise is that she gets kidnapped, and Jason Statham owes her family for a job, really wants to help them. They're going to pay him a handsome sum of money to find her because the cops are going to do nothing about this. and she's embroiled in some like human trafficking stuff. Now this happens. Basically this Russian mafia is involved. This drug running racket's involved, and Jason Statham eventually has to just go through this progression of like finding a clue to find a clue to find a clue to find a clue to find out where she's actually at. And so that is the crux of the movie right there. Now, as he does so, it gets more complicated over the process, and it gets more dangerous over the process. At first, it actually starts on a little bit of a slow note. He shows his prowess by breaking up a fight on the construction site and saving one of the construction workers who owes some money. And then he goes off to go find this girl, and he meets his fellow compatriot here, where he goes and this guy helps him out and encourages him, and eventually gives him some weapons to help him fight against this mafia. So when it starts, like the whole setup is the girl getting kidnapped, and you see that for a while, and that's kind of the slower element of it, because like she's in a club, she's out with her friends, but it is crucial character moments that do matter for who she is and the like that are part of it later, and why, of course, Jason Statham cares about it. Now, it's revealed that Jason Statham, of course, I mentioned earlier, has a family and a daughter himself, so he feels a kinship to this because he wants to protect his own daughter, and somebody stealing a little girl is something that really offends him to his soul, and so he's not willing to compromise whatsoever on this level. He goes off and he follows and tracks a guy who he found as a bartender who actually set this up, and then finds the Russian mafia connection, ends up killing some young people, and the Russian mafia starts to want to track him down in addition to this. So not only is he hunting, but he is the hunted, and that adds a lot of complexity and fun to the story. Now, the Russians end up, like I said, they end up being very caricature Russians. The old men are the old men, and the young men are these guys, and they're wearing couture, but they look like they're like gay clowns. And it's really silly. And because the characters were made into caricatures and made into silly stuff, this was, again, something that was not the case in the books. And I highly recommend the books because of this. It was a directorial choice in the movie that I think made the movie feel sillier and gave it less gravitas and gave it a little less, I'd say, serious action fare as you get into that. Because you look at these villains and you're like, oh, they're kind of ridiculous, right? And when they're kind of ridiculous, that causes a little bit of a problem for the deal. So he hunts them down. He ends up dealing with an old boss, ends up drowning that old boss in his home. And he makes a mistake here where he actually goes on camera, and that's where they can kind of hunt him down. He then traces things to a drug ring, and the drug ring is run by this like big black guy who ends up being a big bruiser, who ends up being kind of like the big boss that he kind of fights towards the end as well. And as it goes along, it gets incredibly worse. They find out who he is, threaten his family. Fortunately, I was expecting his daughter to get, of course, into trouble with this, but they actually did not do that. It ended up being the grandfather who he doesn't like, which shows, again, his heroic nature because he rescues the grandfather even though the grandfather's tried to ruin his life. It shows that he does have compassion, and it's not about himself. And that makes the character compelling here. It really does. And that's what I like about this overall is the main character that Jason Statham is playing here has a code of honor that really is more important to him than money, more important to him than anything else. He doesn't steal. He doesn't take any drugs. He has honor. And that's what makes him relatable overall through this and does a pretty good job. Now, like I said, he finds these silly, decadent people, and the guy who ends up like taking the girl is like he wears a cape for a bit, has a long smoking stick, and I'm sitting here like, they made him into the Penguin, like in Batman, kind of. But he's not in the film very much. You're dealing with other people who sent them to this client overall, and those are the people who are the real dangerous people through this. Now, what threw me out of it a little bit, again, and this is the other criticism I have for the film, beyond the caricature villains that happened through this, is the girl ends up like getting kidnapped, and she's always in these situations where it's like, the Penguin guy was going to, do bad things to her. I'm going to try to be fair for the YouTube censors here. And he always just kind of walks away and, like, leaves her for an inordinate amount of time where it's like, why is she not getting any problems here, and why is this happening? Like, it's like if he bought her for that purpose, he probably would have like gone and done something and actually taken care of business at that front. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't have a problem for YouTube. It's pretty gruesome to think about. But again, like there's too many convenient situations where she just gets out of it, right? And then later on, he sends her off to get killed, and instead of them just popping her and then dumping her off in a forest somewhere, they drive her off to a forest to go pop her there rather than wherever they were at, which I don't know why they did that. And in doing so, she gets into the like strong female lead problematic thing where she just beats the crap out of her would-be assassins and escapes, and actually uses like the broken glass of the window to like undo her bonds. Like she seems like she's Jason Statham's character in that point, which is and these are minor moments. I mean, I'd say like we're talking like 5 minutes out of the entire film here, so it's not a lot, but it's like it was enough to throw me out for moments. And those are my two major criticisms: the villains there, and then this element of her character where it just didn't make sense. She's a 19-year-old girl who's been like stuffed into a suitcase for 2 to 3 days. She should be scared out of her mind, and not like a action hero like Jason Statham. That doesn't make sense. For her to be able to act like that. And that's, again, something that's not in the books. So if you read the books, they're much more competent on that level. It felt like they tried to Hollywoodize it just for a second, just to make it so she's the strong girl, and that's and unfortunately it makes you roll your eyes. Now, getting back to the main plot here, as Jason Statham progresses through drug dealers, through the Russian mafia, he is doing awesome action scenes, which are a lot of fun. And like I said, there's a lot of compelling moments behind Jason Statham as a character. So his like main character stuff where you actually relate to him and care about what he's got going on, you care about his situation with his daughter because of his interactions with that, very well done on that level. And these parts are what make the movie really watchable. So even though it's got a couple of those like little flaws to the movie, like I just said, it does have a lot of fun, and it has a lot of depth to the main character to where I do recommend this movie overall. Now it progresses, and he eventually ends up at this party where he sees everybody. They end up shooting up the place, and Jason Statham does what Jason Statham does best in this action film. The Russian mafia sends their worst bruisers at him. Just as he thought he has a victory in his hands, he has to deal with this even more. And so the action is really, really compelling as it really builds up towards the end, and it's a lot of fun. Non-stop action. The back half of the film is just boom, 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 and that is some fun stuff here. So overall, this is a good movie, but not a great movie, and it's because of those small elements that the director changed from the book that honestly they should have made it a more serious tone, because I think they were trying to go for that beekeeper bit where it was kind of on the campy side, but those parts didn't play very well here because of the way that the book was originally written, that it's a lot more serious of a deal. We're dealing with human trafficking here, after all, right? I mean, this is a nasty sort of thing. And then of course the strong female girl element to it that just kind of threw me out of the film for a few minutes. Because of this, I rated a 8 out of 10, and it could have been better. This could have been a 9 or a 10 out of 10. It is shot on a pretty low budget, and they did a great job with that. I mean, those things are absolutely true as well. Jason Statham did a wonderful job himself, and I hope the next movie they can learn from these little critical parts, if they do a next movie, that is, and actually get this going, because there is a beautiful 12-book series in this, and it builds so nicely that I'd love to see some more films in this franchise. All right, leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Really appreciate you guys for being here and reading and watching. Please read the books. So if you check this out, this is The Demon's Eye in the description below. This is my novel. If you like my thoughts on the film here and character and the like, you might enjoy my work. Check it out. I appreciate you guys for being here, and we'll be back soon.